Hello, my name is Viviana Salazar, and this is vlog number 4, which is basically on our document-based questions that we were giving in class. So the historical context is reform movements developed during the 19th century and early 20th century to address specific problems. These included the women's right movement, the temperance movement, and the movement to end child labor. These movements met with various degrees of success. So the two that I choose about answering the two questions mentioned in the historic context is women's rights movement and the movement to end child labor. So the two questions I have to what I have to mention in this blog is to describe the problems that led to the development of the movement, discuss the extent which movement was successful in achieving its goals. So I would have to explain problems the women's rights phase, the children labor, like the acts that they had towards in our document source 1, document 2. So on that, um, so my introduction is pretty simple. Throughout the timeline of American history, we have to be really specific with this timeline that I'm going to describe, which is during the 19th century and early 20th century. Two major two major movements influenced this time period that I've just mentioned. The movements that I will discuss is the women's rights movement and the movement to end child labor. Many rights and disrespect was given towards these movements. They had a great role in the political. They debated many congressmen and had a goal, and also discussed with many of the state rights that these laws wanted or that wanted to achieve its goals. So then the evidence I used was source 1, source 2, 3, 7, 8, and 9. So what I like to say is that women it's women have always wanted their rights. well, what we discussed in like our PowerPoint that we had in class with the women's right movement, and of course how it involved with the three phases: early 19th century, the 20th century, like towards the Seneca, when um when the 19th Amendment was established in 1920, and then later on we had the modern phase too, which led to the that equal rights and with men and women. So then in document 1, it states it's a source by Lucy Stone and Henry Blackwell when they signed this document when they were married in 1855. So in the two rights in this source, the two rights that are denied women in to women in 1855 is the right to product of their children. That means they don't have the right to keep their children, I guess you can say, since the man was the household was in the one in charge of the children, although the woman was the one who nursed them and kept them for a long time until they grew up to become men or women. They didn't. Another right was that the ownership of their personal property, so they couldn't have their own property. It all belonged to men. The woman belonged to men. There was no issue discussing that, and they had the right to product of her industry or work. So women went to go work in the when they had the spinning jenny, so like they would work in the mills, and that would money would either go to her or if not to the father or the husband, whoever's property she is. Because that's what women were in the American colonists. Um, so then another source in document 2 is according to Senator Robert L. Lowen. He said that protection of the children and the public health were the effects of the women's rights in Colorado. Since there was many wanting to get rights, they they won their petitions, so they got protection of children and of course the public health care, and also some other ones such as improving the school system, which is really good. And then they also had better care for the children, such as better care of the sane, the deaf, and the dumb, unable, the blind, the curfew bell to keep children off the streets at night. So there's many others. I guess women were more pertaining to the children, and they still hadn't had, well, they still had the dependence that they wanted, but this was more in like the earliest stage where they worked more with the children to have more rights, which also pertains to the child labor rights that I'll be discussing in a bit. Doc Another thing to know about the women's rights, like the problems that they had, is document 3, which was one of the biggest ones. Was that many women that they were educated in the middle class, because usually in the middle class, or if you were a wealthy woman in a wealthy family, you could be able to be educated, go to school, go to colleges, but there were only colleges for women. I mean, they were for men, but like they had their own specific one. So it was very impossible for women to not for women to be in the politics. But usually this happened only if they were like low comers or like newcomers of of their city, of their colony. So this meant like they didn't have any right to vote, because that was one thing that they fought for, that women really wanted. And that's how like Abigail Adams, she also told her husband, hey, you need more rights, you know. And that's pretty much it. Like women could only have more women had more privileges if they were in a wealthy family. That was the main key for women. That's how the leaders were. They were usually middle class women. And this was all just a bad political position women had. And one of the things we discussed in the PowerPoint of the women's rights movement is that women in the colonial period had higher statuses than Europe. Yes, that is true. They could be along on their own, not to worry about that there would be men following. Well, what I meant to say is like they don't have they don't have such a strict law, such as like in England when women had to be home at a certain curfew or couldn't go out at all and just stay home. These women here in the colonies worked more outside, since they had to work with their survival, since there was really less resources in the colonies. And one of the things that affected the women today in the colony. Today we're good. Population growth. That was one of the things women had. They usually, a woman lived up her life to just nurse children and give birth. That's all. Give birth, nurse them, and wait, and let only 5 survive. Because usually the average of how many children men and women made was 9, and then only 5 of them would survive, which is really pretty bad. And then it was really different for the wealthy, since the wealthy had a lot of resources and could do anything they could do, since they were in the politics, they had good backgrounds, and they could have about 17 to 20 children in their households. So one of the things, or one of the not movement, like reformers that like helped balance the women's right movement was like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, when they were part of the anti-slavery convention. So from then on, they got into Seneca Falls, which was one of the main things they had. And they, of course, the one who was the like main leader of Seneca Falls was Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And that was around in New York in 1848. One of the biggest movements, when men and women gathered outside to hear the writing Elizabeth Cady made. And what was the main thing that women thought? So it states just in the PowerPoint. Women in the abolitionist movement realized that realized they were being discriminated because of their gender by the very abolitionist leader, black and white alike. So that moved really a lot of movement to women to also help out the African Americans, but also for their independence. Women also wanted to vote. Women also wanted certain rights. Yes, they had the rights of their, like they could get from their husbands, but it wasn't enough for them. And in the end, what was the main achieving goal women had was that was the 19th Amendment in 1920, which is the not the modern phase, the middle phase they had in the women's rights movement. So pretty much what Congress stated, or like what was said to the end of of 1920 was the rights of citizens of the United States to vote not to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So this pretty much was the final seal deal of that of the 19th Amendment in 1920. And as I said earlier, there was other thing things that made women want to do the movement, the women's rights movement, which was involved in from many women from France, which was in 1790 Marquise de Concrate, which is in France, and 1791 by Olympe de Gaulle, who she rewrote the Declaration of Independence, but towards the Declaration of Women. And onto that, when the when women got their rights, another thing could be discussed after that is the child labor movement. To end it, children worked in the factories 24/7, or either they would go along with their brothers and sisters or moms and dads just to help them out, or either to also get money and feed the family at home. So just they had a sick mother and a drunken dad, they would have to go into the factories and work. Although it was very little for them, very little for them to do so much work and to so little for their labor. So a source, document 7, Mother Jones, she had stated that the situation many children face in the workplace was that at six at the age of 6, children worked 8-hour shift for 10 cents a day. So that was very little. That made children want to work more hours and get more out of the day. So they had to stay much with the factory. So they had like a plan sort of thing. But that's how it works. And the children were the tiny hands of the machines. They were the ones, if like something fell off the floor or there was a malfunction in the machine, they would go down there with their tiny hands, which was how they fixed the things. Pretty much the machinery was made for little hands, for children who could go and just fix the machinery, what a regular adult can't do. And also another evidence is document 8, which is the source Stephen Curry, We Have Marched Together. That was a publication in 1997. So Curry had one reason to end the child labor to achieve its goal nationally. It said that, it states here, echoing Roosevelt, many of the bill's opponents said they dislike child labor, but they believe only states have the authority to make laws against it. So this wasn't most like a national thing, but that's why Curry stated that he wanted to make it national for the child to end the child labor movement, because only states could do what they wanted. That's how it was. They had, as again, states had more power. The government, the Congress still hadn't established itself yet, but it all depended on what the states wanted and how they wanted to rule their factories and so on. Last but not least, our last document was from a radio interview with Andrews, Elmer F. Andrews. Yeah, let's see so. He had two ways that the Fair Labor Standards Act protected children. He said, no producer, manufacturer, or dealer may ship, deliver, and then any goods produced in an establishment which has employed oppressive child labor within 30 days of the removal of the goods. The 30 days will be conducted after today, so this means that employers of the children before today do not come under the act. That was kind of harsh, but they got it through. So in the announcer, he asked, "And oppressive children labor is what?" So he defined it as Andrews defined it as the employment of children under 16 in any occupation, except children of 14 or 15 may work in the children's bar, which determine not to interfere with the schooling, health, and well-being. Which is another thing, which is one of the ways that children could work or could have an easy out of their harsh labor, which which is that they can only work if it did not affect their school, their health, or their well-being, or mentally. Also, that was one of the issues too. Another way was that children wouldn't need to work in the manufacturing and mining employment, which was really one of the harshest movement employments the children had. And as I said again, it was really hard for the children since they were the tiny hands. They were the ones who could do the best. You can pay them less since they weren't an adult, or they didn't go against they don't go with the laws. But since then on, with the protection for the children we had, there was an end to this movement, and its goal was achieved. They limited some things. They didn't completely shut it off, but at least they did some limits for the children not to do so much labor in the American history. So in conclusion, the main thing is here, each movement, the movements, women's, the women's movement, right, and the movement to end child labor has extended its purpose and its problems throughout the history. What it was stated was that the women's rights problems were that they couldn't find their independence, they weren't taken into consideration, they weren't in the politics, some of them weren't even educated. That was one of their main things too. And the problems child labor was that children were treated really harsh. They weren't getting paid what they wanted, or they weren't considered for their health or their well-being. And for these movements, their goals were made officially by law, such as the 19th Amendment, 1920, for the women's rights movement, the end of child labor, which pretended to pertain to the Fair Labor Standards Act, which helped protected many children from their sorry from their harsh labor that they did. So at the end of this video vlog, there's just one thing to be taken into consideration. The movement has its problems. It has its purpose. But in the end, it will achieve its goal, not officially as how they wanted, but slowly through history, through a timeline. It will it will take its time, but they will achieve its goal. Such as the women's rights movement, which was during the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. It takes time, but a goal can be accomplished. This is the end of my vlog. Thank you.